Nice to see some interaction coming through already. JP and Daniel.
Oh yeah, probably. Yeah, that would be nice to utilize the chat. So for everyone joining, if you want to quickly introduce yourself in the chat, you can drop a LinkedIn profile and how to connect with you. Feel free to do that. I think there should be about 100 of you hopefully in here today, so maybe some networking opportunities even.
A really good turnout, guys. I see some of the founders I've been working with. George, he's just joined the Accelerate program. Marcus, we've interacted a couple of times before. Good to have you back, mate.
Oh, Toby, I know Toby. We're in the same group chats.
Nice. Welcome, Toby. Good to have you today.
And yeah, in the meantime, I'm figuring out all the different screens I have and like where to look.
Cool. Hey, Nihal. Nice to see you, mate. Alrighty, guys. We've got probably the majority of you here, the guys who have been prompt and on time. So I'm going to start things off. Just wanted to give you all a massive welcome to Apollo. This is Hyper's founder community. Most of you on here are founders, I can see. And some of you, which I've been very lucky to work with or are going to continue to work with. I see Tina's just joined. Hi, Tina. And some of you are guests. And I'm sure some of you are here today because you're either an entrepreneur or maybe someday wanting to become an entrepreneur. But either way, I think you've come to the right place. It's a big privilege for me today to welcome Eva. I've attended a couple of her masterclasses before, and my word, have they been beneficial for me. The best thing for me about Eva's masterclasses is that her content is not taught anywhere else in the world. So I've no MBA or no finance degree does anything specific on investor outreach. And if they did, I don't think it would be anywhere near as useful or near as good as what Eva does. So it's a pleasure to welcome Eva today. And yeah, Eva, I'm going to hand it over to you. Regarding the session, I will be answering questions in the chat. So guys, if you guys do have any questions, please drop them into the chat. I will also be collating a few of your questions, and any that I don't get to answer, I will be swinging Eva's way a little bit further down the line. But it's going to be a 45-minute session of as I know it to be a masterclass, and I'm sure you will all begin to see that the amount of value that Eva brings for founders. So Eva, over to you. Thank you so much for coming, and we'll chat at the end of the session.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Hayden. And yeah, I'm so excited to deliver this one because that's actually my signature masterclass, and it's been perfected after every single time. I'm not gonna, Hayden did a great job of introducing me, so I'll leave it at that because throughout the course of the session, you will know exactly what I do and no introductions will be needed. Can I just check with all of you guys? Can you see the screen? Can you see the Fundraising Playbooks Masterclass?
I can see it. I hope our guests can too. Looks great.
Cool. So we are on. So to get straight into it, guys, the first thing that I want you to know about capital raising is that when you're pitching to an investors, you are pitching yourself at every step of the way. There is 7 different fundraising playbooks that are playing the main part, and I'm going to talk to you about selected ones from this screen. Your follow-ups, your pitch plays a part in this. Whether you were introduced or not also plays a part in this, but I would argue that an introduction is about something like 10% of your success, and then your pitch about 20%, and it all adds up. And if any of you know anything about sales and marketing, you will also know that it takes an average of 7 interactions to close a prospect. The same applies to investors. And what fundraising playbooks are all about is helping you to create that 7 interactions with an investor with a view to close your checks. It can be a variety of different things. The reason why warm introductions work so well is because it adds that another layer of an interaction. And something else that plays part in here as well is the halo effect. which is a cognitive bias whereby we are more likely to judge a person more positively just because of the first positive impression of them. And that's exactly what I do for my clients as well in the first cold email. You can achieve a halo effect in the first cold email, and it completely changes the level playing field. It's exactly the methodology that I'm going to show you here today. And it's been awesome because most recently it got me speaking to Richard Branson's team, and I will show that email at the end. What happens here as well is your online presence is quite important. For those of you who follow me on LinkedIn, I know, like I'm posting a lot, and I cannot count the number of times that someone has approached me at an event and said like, oh yeah, I follow you on LinkedIn. It helps. The reason it helps is because of the mere exposure effect, which is another psychological bias that happens, and investors are, fault, let's say, to this too. As humans, we are more likely to select something just because of the mere exposure to it. So what you want to do in your race is you make sure that you can bump into that investor at an event. You make sure that you post something and that comes up on their feed. Like their comment, like their post, comment on their post, follow up with an email. I did that with one of my clients. So we were following up on an investor, and they weren't responding to them. So I said to my client, go ahead and like this post and leave a comment under. We did that. And then I think something like a couple of hours later, that investor actually responded to that email. It works on a very subliminal level. The best introduction you can get to a VC is one coming from an existing portfolio founder. So the way to do it, you can very easily look up who invested in who, and then go on LinkedIn. And then I would say to them, hi, founder name, we're thinking of approaching this VC. I would love to ask, what was your experience with them? Are you happy to have a founder to founder chat with me? Would you be happy to give me some, your take on this? When you ask for help from other founders, you might be even surprised how, how willing they are to give you that help. Ask and you shall be given situation. Another introduction you can secure is actually from an investor as well. So out of all of the investor replies that you can get, getting the dreaded "you're too early" is probably one of the best ones that you can receive. Because if they tell you something like this, what I suggest you reply is this. You're going to say to them, thank you, not an issue. I do realize we might be too early. I'm happy to reconnect with you in the future. I will send you a recap in the future. And then what you want to say to them is that I've seen you're connected to these other investors as well. Do you think they could be interested at this stage? This advice also comes from Dan Boyer, so from Superseed. Yesterday, I was giving my masterclass at a HubSpot conference, and Dan was giving a session before me. He was incredible, honestly. He's like one of the best speakers I know. And he said, what you need to do is make the investor's job easier for them. So you go ahead on LinkedIn and you look up yourself who that investor is connected to that you want an intro to. Don't make them do the research themselves. Don't just say, oh, anyone else in your network that I should speak to. No, do their job for them. And then another top tip is that you should also include below is a shareable bio on me that I am more than happy to be forwarded on. That way they can just copy, paste, send, done. You're going to get so many more introductions for that because you have removed so many of the user journey steps from them, and it's so much better. So this is what happens in terms of your outreach playbook. You firstly have to get through the first impressions. So when you send your first cold email, you can mention any of the above. But also, this is something that you should be saying in response to an introduction. So even if someone makes an introduction for you, it is still so very much in, in your interest to respond to it beautifully. And I will show you how. After you do that, I do suggest you follow up on them pretty quickly. For my clients, I even suggest 1 or 2 days after the emails was opened, because again, sales knowledge, the interest of a prospect is the highest 48 hours after that interaction, and then it massively drops down. So you want to leverage this in your follow-up. Make sure it is a value add follow-up. Don't just say, did you have a chance to take a look? Say something that has happened. Assume they've read it, assume they've opened it, and say something on your metrics, on your recent achievements, on your progress talking to other VC funds, and then include your Calendly link, which I do suggest you keep to 15 minutes, because almost 90% of us humans, we set the default Calendly links to 30 minutes, and all Zoom meetings are 30 minutes. So even if you send your Calendly to 15, most likely chances are that investor will have that additional 15 minutes. So even if you overrun, you still got your half an hour. And also it is such a smaller ask to ask for 15 minutes only. Next, you're moving to creating urgency and FOMO. This is your second follow-up. I suggest you leave them for even up to 10 days. You can leave it, don't worry. And then what we want to do is to incorporate some of the fundraising playbooks. One of them comes from Kevin Ryan, who is one of the New York City fundraising legends, because he had raised over 750 million across all of his businesses. The advice coming from him is that the first time you mention your raise, you say, we're raising 1 million seed, as an example. You come back to them 2 or 3 weeks later and you say to them, actually, now it looks a little bit more. Now it's going to be 1.5 to 2, because what this suggests is that you've had some positive conversations with other investors. You're communicating demand. You're showing that things are looking positive, and it all adds up. So in that second follow-up, this is exactly what you can say. And I will have you guys know that we're still personalizing here. So we're going to say there is a place for a value add investor. And I do like how your sector focus aligns with our go-to-market strategy. Happy to explain in more detail. You can also implement another playbook, which I call a playbook for herding sheep. And this is one that I've developed after I've attended a VC breakfast with the CEO of Carta, Henry Ward. And what he said, what is very true, is that most investors are more worried about looking stupid than being actually good. And, that's why they syndicate. That's why they talk to each other. There is VC group chats. There's investors group chats. Like when you send your deck to an investor, assume it's going to be circulated around group chats. There's so many of them. And, it's a risk mitigation strategy because, if that business fails, at least it's not just that one investor that looks stupid. So you can leverage this as well. What you should do is you can say that you also reached out to this other investor and I saw you co-invested with them in the past. So I thought it might be valuable to have a joint conversation on this. And now you're in this dual conversation where you're bringing all 3 parties together to the room. And again, you've just made that investor's life so much easier because you found a co-investor for them. It's so much better. Lastly, you move on to the progress updates. So if that investor is still not responding to you and you're not hearing back from them, the only last thing that you can do is to send a progress update. Some people send them monthly, some people send them quarterly, some people send them without any schedule at all, which I think is absolutely fine. What you want to say in there as well is that we've been sending progress update emails. We're growing really fast. I think they could be of relevance to you. I think you would also appreciate how we've opened up a recent opportunity, which is a nod to your background. I'm forwarding this update below. You send it to them. What you want to do is you want to keep them posted on your progress on a regular basis, because most founders that I know, how they raised it is that an investor responded to one of their progress updates and they booked themselves in for a meeting, and that's what that it led to checks. You can, of course, get on a meeting and and wow them and secure the introduction and then get to the checks. But I'm telling you, most of the founders, they secure checks this way. So it's very much in your interest to keep them posted on your progress. And it's not actually unusual for them to be tracking you for a really long time, even between 1 to 2 years. And I know what you guys might be thinking, you might run out of money by then. And it's true. I don't know if you know this, but this has actually happened to Brian Chesky at Airbnb. They didn't raise their first ever raise. They actually had to take on credit card debt. This is option number 1 that can happen to you, and I hope it doesn't. Option number 2, you can follow a trail of introductions. You can be introduced to another investor and raise, and then they will suggest somebody else, and you've got this. And this is the luckiest path. And I truly hope you'll be able to follow this one. But the third one, which is my favorite one, is you can raise on the back of a cold email. Tim Ellis, when he cold emailed Mark Cuban, he was only 23 at the time, and the company, I think, had not yet even been incorporated at the time. Mark Cuban replied to him within minutes, with an investment offer of 5 times bigger, by the way, because Tim was only asking for 100K. Mark Cuban invested 500K. Cold outreach done properly works, and that's exactly what I'm going to show you right now. So I want you to be able to do what one of my clients managed to do, which is he got a reply within 20 minutes. And the way I start to do this is that I start my investor research on ShipShape, because ShipShape actually allows you to put in your specific keyword, such as, decentralized finance solutions or metaverse e-commerce platform. And it will give you a list of all of the investors that are investing in that particular vertical. ShipShape is also a forever free platform. It is run by my good friend, Daniel Safko, who, I've met him in business, but over the years, he's become such a great friend. He's made so many introductions to me, more than I can count. And he is very pro-founder. That's why he says, he will always keep this platform for free. He's just a legend. He's really great. So I went on ShipShape. I typed in the keyword robotics, and you can find that it gave me the article that mentioned that keyword. And here we can see that one of the partners from Kindred Capital commented on one of their investments in a robotics startup. So, I pick up on the fund, Kindred Capital. Let's look them up. You go on their website, and you can see that they say you need to have a rare, if not unique, depth of insight into a problem. They also say you don't need product revenue or a perfect pitch. They will also tell you that they focus on B2B. They will also tell you their average check size, stage of investing, the founders that genuinely change the world works with their technology. That's another one of their requirements. And lastly, they also even say, please read our post, 7 reasons why founders shouldn't talk to Kindred. It's all there for you on the website. It's there if you know where to look for it. So you go on that article, and please make sure that you respond to every single one of these 7 questions. If you do, that's great. That's when you follow down the trail. That's when you do more research on Kindred. If you do not, drop it and then move on. Because as a founder, you only have 24 hours in your day. Use it wisely. Do not waste your time chasing dead ends. So if we make sure we comply with all of those 7 reasons why founders shouldn't talk to Kindred, then I would go on LinkedIn and look up Kindred Capital or any other fund that you're targeting on LinkedIn. Go into the People's tab and find a partner to reach out to. Then you go on their LinkedIn, and then you go to their bio section. And here, in case of Chris, we can see that he is actually an ex-operator. He was previously in the machine-to-machine learning space. And then also he posted this article, which is quite relevant. So look up this article, and you can find the exact personal characteristics that Kindred is looking for. They say they want founders who are obsessing about what you are building, not taking yourself too seriously. So The reason we've just gone through all of that and we did this research is so that we could craft the best cold email to be sent to Chris. And this is exactly what I would say to him. I've been obsessing over robotics for quite a long time, to the point I quit a cushy job for it. The reason I did that, the unfair advantage we have, the time is right, our approach is unique. Now, have a think. We can't vote, unfortunately, on this platform, but have a think to yourself, or maybe say in the chat, say yes in the chat if you think that this email is mostly startup oriented, or keep quiet if you think that this is mostly investor oriented. I always like to see what's people's opinions on that. Is this mostly about the startup, or is this about the investor? Because what we're doing in here is that, firstly, you're explaining why you then are explaining why tackle this problem, then you're explaining why now, and lastly, you're explaining why are you special. And if you think that this is startup oriented, the next slides will blow your mind, because it's entirely investor oriented, this email, because this is only what's happening on the surface level. Whereas subliminally, what we're doing is that we have just referred to one of their articles, obsessing about what you're building. And there's something interesting about using the same word, because Harvard Business Review did a study on linguistic mirroring. Lawyers who linguistically mirror judges' writing styles in legal docs more than doubled their chances of winning the case, which is absolutely insane. We're talking about using the same vocabulary, the same tonality of the voice, and a similar sentence structure. This is exactly what we did here, and that's what you've opened your email with. The next part, we are referring to the fact that they are looking for founders that can genuinely change the way it works with their technology from their website. You are answering, do you have an unfair advantage that will mean that you will win? It's from the 7 Reasons article. And do you have a good answer why the time is now? Then you are also answering another question from their article. Do you have a domain expertise in their market? Then you're also referring to the fact that Chris's bio said he held previous roles in the machine-to-machine startup space. And lastly, you're also referring to 3 other questions from the Kindred's article. So you might think that this email is startup-oriented on a surface level, but when Chris from Kindred Capital sees this email, he will know exactly what you have done. And I decided to test this. So I've reached out to Chris myself. I sent him a LinkedIn message and I said to him that I'm using him as an example in my master classes. And I said this is a target reason why I'm messaging him. And then I said to him, if you have some time to spare, I would love to jump on a call with you to show you that email that I would send to you and get your take on this, on whether or not you would respond to a cold email like that. So the email I just showed you guys, Chris has booked himself in for a call with me, and the email template that you have seen is officially Chris approved. So he did say that, yes, he would respond to a cold email like that, and he quite liked it. And he also had told me that he looks at around 40 emails every single day that arrive to the generic email pitch deck submission inbox. He reads between 25 to 30 pitch decks every day. He spends 7 hours in calls daily. They did invest in a company on the back of a cold email. And then lastly, a warm intro is worth a ton of gold, but only if it's from someone that he trusts. And this is important. This is what I really want to talk to you guys, because you will see a lot of startup experts and consultants that will tell you that they've helped to raise over 300 million for their startups. And I always question this, because if you think about it, most success fees are about 5%. They will want to take a cut from you, 5% of your raise. But let's give that person a little bit of a leeway. Let's assume they charged every single startup that they've worked with only 1%. 1% out of 300 million is still $3 million. So my question to them would be, why are you here trying to close me as your client? Like, wouldn't you want to start a fund? Wouldn't you want to, do something else? Where are all those success fees? And there's not a way of tracking this. There's a lot of time wasters in this space, and I don't want you to waste your time on them. I would love for you to be able to go into this with a critical thinking mindset and ask them questions. It's impressive, 300 million. How long did that take you, if I can ask? Over what period of time? And also, were all of them on success fees? Or how does your pricing work commercially? How much do you charge? Ask them question, are you doing this in a full-time scope? The world of startups is a beautiful and a collaborative space where people will do introductions for you. People will help you. So many of my business connections have become my friends, and I absolutely love this space. But for every light, there's also darkness. There's two sides of the coin. In one of my previous jobs, when I joined, I was joining in the most exciting part of the company because we had just merged with another Australian business with a view to launch $1 billion fund. I was an associate, and the partners at that company gave me a script to say, go on calls, and we're launching a $1 billion fund. So I did. And I was saying that to everyone I spoke with, and people would ask me, oh, when's your first close? I'm like, I don't know. Who are your LPs? I don't know. What's your investment strategy? Oh, it's going to be pretty generic, pretty much, high growth startups. And then 1 month, our salaries did not arrive. And then the next one, and 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 the next one. I went 8 months without a salary. And until some afternoon in late May, a 20-year-old intern went on Google, and she Googled and found out that the company had engaged liquidation lawyers. The company went into administration. I never saw that money back. And, sunk cost fallacy really kicks in, because by month number 3 or 4, I'm there thinking, super stressed out of my mind. If I leave now, I will fall to the very bottom of the priority list of whoever gets paid, if ever. So I've learned this the hard way. I hope you guys don't have to. Please be careful. Please have critical thinking skills of who you engage with. So when I was desperate, so she found out that the company had engaged liquidation lawyers. I remember I confronted the partners. They said, yes, they're liquidating. I stood up, I left the office, and I never came back. And then I called, emailed a partner at Sequoia. And what I did with them is that my email was actually flipping the script. And now I call it the flip the script playbook, because only a small portion of it was related to me, or let's say my startup. So what I said to them is, I've started with an ultra personalized opener. And I said, I read Sequoia's article on Seed Fund 5, which you shared some time ago in your LinkedIn post, and I'm impressed with the insights each of the partners included. Then I decided to give him something of value, like a new take on their insights. And by the way, don't worry, guys, ChatGPT helped me with this one. I'm not an expert on this topic. I said, reading your input about electrification, I also thought, as we drive towards the net zero electric future, cobalt shortages might come into consideration. And then lastly, I finished with a small non-obligation CTA. And I said, I'm based in London. In case you expand the team in here or would be open just to meeting and swap ideas, feel free to keep me in mind. The partner had replied to me a day later. Sadly, they were not hiring at the time, but maybe it's for the best given what I do today. But I did get a reply just a day later. Daniel, we've mentioned him before, ShipShape. This is the exact message that he sent on LinkedIn to one of his investors who had then invested in his business. very targeted message. And similarly, as I finished my email to that partner from Sequoia, Dan finishes this message with something similar. He says very non-obligation, nonchalant, and just, just chill. Would love to connect and chat. And this is what I want you guys to understand as well. So out of all of the ways that you can finish off your cold message, you can generally go from relaxed to somewhat more hinting ones, to the direct ones, and to ones that you probably should not be using at all. So on the relaxed side, keep you in the loop. Feel free to keep me in mind. Are you open to connecting? Hinting ones, would love to connect and chat. Or direct ones, happy to organize a call to walk you through our deck. And subject lines for sparking interest, I like to use the word your comment, because as humans, psychologically, we do not know if it's a positive comment or a negative comment. So when you receive an email like that into your inbox, you will want to see, oh God, what comment? What's that about? And quite a strategic use of the word but. Hi, Greg. I've been enjoying your LinkedIn posts, but your involvement with the mental health marketplaces, ... because Gmail will cut it off, or Outlook, or whatever mail web agent they use. And what you're saying is, I've been enjoying your LinkedIn posts, but it's your involvement with the mental health marketplaces what resonated with me even more. We have tested this with some of my clients, and yes, it leads to higher open rates. It's literally just pure human nature. And you gotta remember, what's the different character limits that will get shown on preview. And generally the smallest one that you're looking for seems to come from Outlook. It's 35 characters. So look, if you start your email with something like this: my name is Eva, and I'm the co-founder of the startup stage. That's 80 characters used up. Don't do that. Try to keep it to 35 characters so that your most important message gets shown. But please, for the love of God, do not start your email with, I hope this email finds you well, because that eats up all of your 35 characters already. A much better use of this initial space is to say, I read your report and I like. I did some research on your portfolio and I noticed this person and so on. And look, it's a sad reality that we have to do this, but we live in such an attention deficit economy these days. To put it into perspective, more concepts, ideas, and thoughts can fly by in a 30-minute TikTok binge compared to what our ancestors would have been exposed to throughout the entirety of their lifetimes. We're getting pitched at, we're getting sold at, we have millions of notifications. You have to make the first impression count. And in the world of capital raising, your business is only as good as your ability to articulate it. That's what you're up against. It's not fair, but it's the cards we've been dealt, and you got to learn how to play this. So the playbook for it is to firstly find a really good investor target. And I would make an argument that if an investor invests in your industry, geography, and stage, that's still just a 50-50 chance. They can invest or not. I assign them with a baseline of 50 points. And then there's certain signals that I watch out for. So you would want to see if their vision and values align with yours. You want to see if they have a track record of exits in your industry. If they have an investment thesis that matches your go-to-market strategy, that becomes an even better one. If the investors showed interest in your tech or product area in interviews, blog posts, X or LinkedIn posts, or the biggest one and the strongest one, in my opinion, is if what you do strategically aligns with their mandate, coming from their LPs, coming from their parent corporation. The more points you add up, the better your investor target. And on the negative adjustments, if they face controversies, if they have a history of different stage investing compared to what you are, if they have conflicting investment philosophy, They might prefer quick exits whilst you want to IPO. It's not a fit. If they publicly express a negative view on your business, or if they invested in a competitor recently. Now, get ready to screenshot, because these are all of the email openers I would send based on each of the positive adjustments. And the one that I particularly like is the top one, because you can say, we've used it actually with one of my clients. Your fund's annual report said that investments in medical devices are your focus in the next coming years. I'm a seed-level startup in that space, and I have solid answers to how we fit each 3 of the key attributes you look for. The 3 key attributes were also mentioned in that report. So we really show to that investor that we've done our research. You can also refer to their, to your go-to-market strategy. So here we're saying, I've read that your fund is well equipped to support companies crossing over the pond to the US. I'd like to put us on the radar because we have just signed the first LOI with a potential client from Texas. It's a great way to say a lot with a very few words, which you should be doing in an email. And here, I've been enjoying your LinkedIn post, but it's your fund's overall mission of backing immigrant founders that really resonated with me. So guys, I've written 25 strategy playbooks like this in my fundraising playbooks package, which you can grab from my website anytime, and it is on 30% off until I finish speaking. It comes with 44 investor databases and 11 of my winning cold emails as well, and much more. I won't go too much into detail into that. Story time. 2 weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago, I've met my good friend Nick for a strategy session for his business. And we were just chatting about his business, but I also told him something that I am telling to almost everyone right now. Oh, sorry, no, I don't have any pictures of this event apart from this picture of the Negronis that were on the table. They were pretty good. So I told him that I want to reach Richard Branson. And somehow Nick happens to know Will, who is Richard Branson's right-hand man. He was for about 40 years. So I said to Nick, could you just drop him a message? Not even ask for an introduction, but just drop him a message. What would be Will's advice to me? How can I best approach Richard Branson? And then Will responded, and Will's advice was that I should actually go to Greg. And Greg is the director of content and communications for Virgin Media and for the entirety of Branson's family. So I did some research and I sent my very cold email to Greg. And what I said is, Eva to Nick to Will to you and ... Richard. And I've opened this email with, hi Greg, in 6 degrees style, my friend Nick texted Will. My initial question to Will was how to approach Richard directly, but Will advised you could be the right person. So we really put the power to Greg, like I want to reach Richard, but actually Greg, I think you could be the right person here. Then I've explained what I would love to do somewhere in the next 3 years, which is hush hush, but something is coming. Then I would explain how this would enhance Virgin's Group's and Branson's family's capabilities in certain areas of what they do. And then I said what I am envisioning. And I got a reply a day later. Greg has added his colleague to pick this up when she's later on back this week. And she actually did pick this up. She actually wants to see some more details around the idea and how do I see this working. I received this 2 days ago. I'm in conversations with them right now. And guys, this is what I do for a living. I will help you get the seat at the right table. I came to UK 10 years ago without knowing a soul. Not a parent, not a friend, no connections. I'm entirely self-made. I've built my network on LinkedIn, like 40K, all of my friends, all of the 600 investors I spoke to in the last half a decade. I've made notes on every one of them, by the way. I've built it all myself from scratch. And the fundraising playbooks and everything that I do is literally just like a compilation of all of the different things that I've learned and strategies to help you reach any investor, anytime, anywhere, all by yourself, no matter your race, sex, gender, age, what country you're from, who you know or who you don't know. You shouldn't have to rely on introductions and insider world. There's ways in. There's different playbooks in. And that's exactly what I do in my investor sprints. I build you the investor list in the first half of the session. Then we have a halftime strategy session. And then I actually craft ready to be sent cold emails. It's a full bespoke made for you service. I love doing that. With one of my clients right now, we are actually cold emailing Emma Watson because she had invested in a startup that's quite related to what my client is doing. So it's a lot of fun. And then we send those emails. And then, as in case of some of my clients, you get replies even day later. So with one of my absolutely favorite clients, Damien, he had sent 8 of the cold emails that I've drafted for him on the last day of our investor sprint. And what has happened the next day absolutely blew my mind because he received 8 replies back within 4 hours, 100% strike rate. It was absolutely incredible, and I absolutely love this. And you can do an investor sprint with me if you want to. You can send me a cold email. Thank you very much, everyone. That's the end of the session. Hayden, you can get back to me.
Absolutely epic.
Thank you.
It's always a continuous learning process, isn't it? And even today, I've learned so much. One of our founders at Hyper, a guy by the name of Stu, he landed himself, I'm sure by possibly using some of your techniques, 6 meetings with investors this last week. And one of the biggest key takeaways for me from this session was he didn't manage to land a check post that meeting. But again, like you mentioned, 70% of all the investment that is to land is probably going to come through that follow-up process. Yes. So he needs to just carry on cracking on, sending those investor updates and make sure he keeps them updated as to his progress. Yeah. One of the questions that came through, and it's obviously a very, very tricky one, because it is such a challenge for female founders in a male-dominated space. Mm-hmm. One of our founders works in the insurtech space, and obviously insurance itself is a male-dominated historical industry. And she wanted to know how would you get around any form of bias that's maybe that's associated to female founders and getting them a seat at the table?
Yes, of course. I get that question a lot. Before I answer it, I just want to say if she is in insurtech space and if she is in the UK, she should target Simvan Capital. And if she reaches out to Alan from Simvan Capital, feel free to say, Eva Dobrzanska recommended. I send you an email. Alan will respond to you. So look, with the whole of gender glasses, basically, I always struggle with answering this one because I always say that I think there's an equal amount of pluses and minuses to both genders. Again, it's the cards you've been dealt. It's down to you how you play this. And it's like in poker, you don't have to have the best hand to actually win. So one of the pieces of advice I recently gave to my, one of the female founders I worked with is that, yes, she did find that a lot of, male investors would be asking her a lot of questions about mitigating risks. And mitigating risks questions seem to be bigger than the opportunities questions. So what we did is that we had decided to anticipate this and get one step in front of it. We've designed a slide in her pitch deck that outlines specifically all the key risks to the business. We've put them on a scale and we've included a risk mitigation strategy to each one of them. Be one step ahead of them. If you think that, they're going to be asking those questions to, on the risk mitigation, just give it to them first. Don't let them say it first. You've already thought about this and you've got a strategy to address this. And that really comes across as well prepared and, knowing your investor target audience pretty well as well.
Epic. Thanks, Eva. Tina, yeah, so I'll be able to put you in touch with Eva, and you guys can connect. One of the things that we always discuss, and you mentioned it at the beginning, was just rubbing shoulders and trying to find yourself in a position where you're able to bump into specific people of influence, be that investors or and going to events is a great way to do that. You mentioned that there's a site. It's called Luma, and I believe you're having an event next week.
I do.
It's in London.
Yes, a couple of weeks after. This is going to be so cool. So I've partnered with this really, really cool co-working space, and basically kind of like events, guys. So on the 14th of November, we are doing a co-work day. So if you are in London, if you want to come and co-work with me for a day and do like a mini investor sprint on the day, you can sign up, and it's in Shoreditch. We're going to do a full day of workshops, but then the entire afternoon, we're actually sending as many investors emails as we can. I'm going to probably ask everyone, like the moment you come in, I'm probably going to ask everyone to like actually hand away the phones. Let's disconnect. Let's not get distracted by any notifications. You will still have them on your laptop, but and then we send as many emails as possible. We try to uncover new fundraising playbooks specifically for your business as well. That's like probably like one of the things I love most about my job is when we get to find and uncover new fundraising playbooks for my clients in the course of working with them, and they get their own bespoke playbooks, which is amazing. So yeah, that's there's going to be a taster of that basically on the 14th of November. And I do suggest you go for the package with food because I'm in charge of it. Yeah, it's going to be great.
Epic. Thanks, Eva. You spot on. It's a continuous learning process, and there's no better learning than by doing. So all the founders that are in London, please do go and head to that event in Shoreditch. Do follow Luma as well. Just keep that in terms of your email updates. There are often some specific VC investor events where they'll highlight their quarterly review, or they'll have 4 of their founders that are part of their fund that they're investing in which case they'll get those founders to pitch to the guests. I went to Velocity Capital's event like that, and ended up having Chinese with a few of the founders at 3 a.m. in Soho.
Oh my gosh, so nice.
So I can highly recommend you find those events. And I'm now obviously friendly with the founder, bonding experience over Chinese. And if I ever wanted to get a warm introduction to one of the managing partners at Velocity Capital, that would be, like you mentioned, Eva, the best way to do it. So everybody, keep an eye out on the Luma events there.
I see one more question that's just coming right now. So, one person asked, a lot of VCs take decks via their website and they don't respond. What should that founder do? So I always advise that you submit your deck via the form, because, that's the process, make their life easier, but then also send them a cold email on top of that. So you should also research that specific partner or principal or an associate and send them a cold email to say, all of that cool personalized stuff that I showed you guys. And then you just finished off by saying, I've also submitted my deck through your website form. Watch out for your startup name. That's what I would say. And since we are on the topic of associates and analysts, I also want to make you guys aware, and this is coming from, a ex-VC associate and analyst. I was one myself, but also a lot of the ones that I spoke to. A lot of analysts, especially, they could be pretty young. They could be straight out of uni. They could be interns that won't know that much about your industry. And, they will go on a call with you and you're pitching to them, and, they will listen to you and they will nod and like, yep. But if they started at that fund recently, or if it's the beginning of the career, they're not going to be brave enough to interrupt you and say, I'm sorry, I have no clue what you're talking about. And yet it is them that later on will be responsible for creating an investment memo on your business that will go to the partners at the weekly investment committee, and they are the ones who will be presenting your business to them. So it is very, very much in your favor to make your pitch as clear as possible, as understandable as possible, no industry jargon, put it through your grandpa/grandma test. If you would say it to your grandma, would she understand what you're building? So it's very important to bear that in mind.
Thanks, Eva. Yeah, that's super important. A few questions here. So Raluca has asked about emails targeting clients, and then George has also asked whether or not a playbook or an email playbook like this, whether it's transferable for cold outreach to angel investors. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, it is. So a number of those cold emails from the package that I've got is actually to angel investors. It's the same principles that apply. The only problem with angels is that there's just a little bit of less information that you can find online. It's not like they have full-blown websites on their investment strategy. But what I would suggest you do is that try and look up their previous investment history. So, for example, I believe one of the emails in the package, or maybe one of the emails that I've drafted for my client, I think we were targeting an angel investor. I think he was called Rob from memory. And we said to him, "Hi, Rob. We did some research. I've seen, the space that you're in, and I would love to connect some of the dots." And then what followed next in an email was 3 bullet points. The first bullet point referred to his previous investment history. So we said, "I saw you previously invested in this company, and what we do is adjacent in the following way." Then the second bullet point referred to his career history. So we said, I saw your ex-Cisco, and we're actually targeting this sector as one of our partnerships. And the third bullet point, I think, referred to one of his advisory or NED positions, where I think we said, "I also saw you sit on the advisory board of this startup and that startup. I would love to hear the expertise that you can, that you bring to them, because we might be at a similar stage as they are." So it's very, very much applicable, quite sector agnostically, geography agnostically, and stage agnostically as well.
Thanks, Eva. Yeah, it's very much like you mentioned. It's a psychological game, isn't it? It comes down to human nature. So whether it's a potential client or an angel investor, you've got to use those tricks to get their attention. One of the founders that I'm working with, he's doing a nightlife. Well, it's an app in the nightlife space, and we sourced, like you mentioned, it's an angel investor who he himself enjoys parties and nightlife, and and that was obviously a nice hook for him to grab his attention, given that he may be interested in using the product, but also being a potential investor. So following that similar mindset to how you might tow in a VC in terms of their investment mandate, what maybe is an interest to an angel investor. And another question, is there a difference between the kind of investors? Is it VC, corporate venture capitalist, BA at the moment to apply the playbooks? No, I think that's probably the similar question that we just answered, isn't it?
Yeah, similar. So out of the ones that you've mentioned, Jordi, and so nice to see you on this webinar. I know we chatted a little bit on LinkedIn. Family offices are probably the hardest ones to reach, because they are somewhat like the most elusive out of the category of all of the investors that are out there. There's barely any information on them online. They generally prefer to meet you face to face and get to know you. It's a family, like, if you think about it. So they could be the hardest ones to reach, and you probably will need a Sherpa. So you will want someone who works in in that space, family offices, hedge funds, my flatmate for one. And you will want to find your way into the family office lunches that they have. For example, there's this community called let me note it down, AYU, I think. This one, I think. And it's basically like a family office community with all of the different events. It's in London. Whereas on the other side of the spectrum, corporate arms, sorry, VC arms of corporations are probably the easiest ones to reach. And for me, an outreach, probably the favorite ones. So an example, for one of my clients, I can show you this, guys. I can show you this from my different masterclass. Let me pull up slides back up. Because for
While
one of
doing that,
yes,
I'm going to just alert everybody that this was obviously the cold email outreach, and you're in fact you have another event coming up in terms of it's regarding investor relations. So let me share the link in the chat as well regarding investor relations, and yeah, please do get to what you're about to share with us.
Amazing. So this comes from another masterclass that I have, and I just want to show you that for one of my clients, we were targeting, there we go. We were targeting, where's this open thing? There we go. We were targeting BP Ventures. So what I decided to do is I went on BP Ventures website and I found their net zero progress update, 39-page report. And by the way, if you don't want to read it all through this, you can put it through ChatGPT and ask for summaries. That's pretty useful. But I found this bit where they said when it comes to their plans on bioenergy, they are actually planning to build 80 projects in the renewable gas space. And this is important because if you think about it, building 80 renewable gas plants it's a massive undertaking. There's so many things that can go wrong when it comes to supply chain and everything. And drum roll, funnily enough, my client happened to be in the supply chain space. That's why I was doing all of this research. So this is the slide that I've designed for her. We had referred to this specific plan of BP. We've outlined the supply chain challenges that BP might face, and then we've linked it on how her software could address that specifically. So there's a lot of really cool things that you can do when you are targeting the VC arms of corporations, because they have a lot of public documents available. There's a lot of knowledge if you just know where to look. So that's one of the examples of how you can do it.
Thanks, Eva. That's an epic insight. One question from me, something that I've been struggling to do while helping my founders, and maybe you'd be able to help me with this mental barrier or mental block. But we've been searching VCs that invest in the same vertical as the founder or the startup that we're trying to do cold outreach for. However, we see that there's a very similar competitor in which that VC already invests, and there could be a bit of a conflict of interest in terms of them helping our startup. What would you suggest? And is there? I don't know what the next step would be from that. You've already stripped out all the VCs that don't invest in your vertical. You finally found one, and now you've got another barrier. Oh, they've already invested in a competitor. Should you walk away at that stage, or what would you suggest in terms of next steps?
Look, if you can do your research and if you can clearly see, like clearly black and white, it's your competitor, I would say walk away. You have to find a new investor target. A story. One of the founders that I know, he was targeting a VC fund, and they did notice that in their portfolio there was someone who looked to be somewhat a competitor, but nonetheless they still sent an email to them, and the VC fund got back to them, and they took a meeting, and then they took a follow-up, and then they moved them to the due diligence stage, and they keep talking to them, and the more they're talking, the more uncomfortable the founder gets, because he still remembers that we think there's a competitor in there, like what's going on. And then he reached the final due diligence stage with that VC, and they said to them that the final decision of whether the investment will be made or not will be made after that founder has a call with that other company, the seemingly competitor. And the founder decided not to take it. He walked away.
Smart move, it seems. Hey.
Yeah, and we'll never know. We'll never know if this was. I don't know. I don't know if this was genuine or not. We will never know. But yeah, what I said earlier, there's two sides of the coin. The business world can be so beautiful and collaborative, but it can also be cutthroat and brutal. And you really have to learn to walk that line and navigate it quite responsibly and smartly.
Thanks, Eva. It's been an incredible session. I've yet again learned something new. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining us. We'll most definitely be implementing this at Hyper with our founders. And please do continue following Eva on LinkedIn. Join her next masterclass. You'll always pick up something new every session. So thank you for your time.
Can I just drop something else as well? Actually, I'll just leave this here in the chat. Guys, feel free to leave a review. There's a link to my Typeform, and it always helps because it just helps me to reach more founders and give more of these sessions. So yeah, feel free to drop what you liked about it, and thank you so much for being here because it would not be possible without you, literally.
Thank you, Eva. Have a lovely Friday, everybody. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.